All right, we're live.
I
Sit
am
tight
a
for a second.
difference maker. Oh, I am a difference maker. Oh, I am only one that speaks to him. And I am the friendliest of friends of God.
For those of you just joining, we're going to wait just about a minute to get the program started. Sit tight and we'll get things going in a second.
Calling to the darkness for an answer that he's never known. Yeah, isn't it amazing how God can take a broken man? Yeah, let him find a fortune, let him ruin it with his own two hands. He walks on up the hill to the rock on which he stands. He looks back at the crowd, he looks down at his hands, and he says, I am the difference maker. Oh, I am difference maker. Oh, I am the only one that speaks to him. And I am the friendliest of friends of God.
All right, Stacy, if you want to bring down the music. Good afternoon. My name is Chris Konetsky, and I'm the publisher and executive editor of the Business Record. Welcome to our CRE Trends and Issues Forum, sponsored today by our presenting sponsor, Polk County Housing Trust Fund, and our supporting sponsors, Mid-American Energy and Henning Construction. We've got a great program for you today. Not only are we going to honor our 2021 Iowa State University Ivy College of Business CRE Pro of the Year, but we also have 8 questions for 8 fantastic speakers who are going to take us on a little tour around the different segments of the industry to help you get a temperature on an industry that is ripe with questions and challenges, and yet still, of course, lots of opportunity. Want to know whether rapidly increasing building material prices are ever going to level off? Don't worry, we're on it. Want to know if the industrial boom is set to continue? Promise we've got you covered here today. Want to know if it's now the time to put all your money in Bitcoin or Dogecoin? Well, sorry, you're in the wrong place for that, but we will dive into how COVID-19 is affecting commercial lending, is affecting commercial projects. And you never know, we got some pretty smart panelists. Maybe they've got some tips for you on your investing patterns this year. There's no question that COVID-19 is going to color a lot of today's program. The effects and ongoing effects have stirred and shaken up what has been a relatively steady market leading up to COVID. And we knew a traditional panel conversation today wouldn't allow us to get to a large swath of topics that we're trying to get a little bit of a temperature test across the board. So by design, the aim today is going to go a little bit more mile wide than a mile deep. And we've got a great group of 8 speakers to help us do that, just that. And to help you go even a little bit deeper, we're really excited to share a resource and a brand new initiative that is going to help you do just that. First, in your business record this week, members are going to find the 6th edition of our annual real estate magazine. Senior staff writer Kathy Bolton and our entire team worked really hard to bring you this project, and I promise you it's packed with great stuff. To put together the editorial content for the magazine, we brought together industry experts from 5 different areas of real estate and development to go deeper into office, retail, industrial, land, and residential. In addition to the work that Kathy and some of our other newsroom folks worked on the project as well, so you'll get a good sampling of stories across the board. In addition, you're going to find Hubbell's market facts, you're going to find broker profiles, and a list of 10 of the largest deals in each of the sectors. So I want to give a big thank you to the Business Record team, our copy editor, photographers, our design team for their hard work on making this fantastic resource. It's a beautiful magazine. You're going to appreciate it. And the magazine wouldn't be possible without the support of this year's chapter sponsors. So a big thank you to Urbandale's Urban Loop, R&R Realty, and the Iowa Finance Authority, and the countless other companies that have advertisements within the publication as well that help support it. You can check out the features from the magazine, and our members have access to a digital version of the publication. You can find that online at businessrecord.com/AREM. If you'd like a copy and you're not a member, you can simply contact Jason Swanson. He's our Vice President of Operations. You can do that on our website at businessrecord.com/membership. In addition, we've got a brand new initiative that we're really excited to launch this year and to tell you about. It's called Project 515. Project 515 is a new series of real estate and development focused virtual events that are going to take a deep dive into 3 specific subsections of the industry. I mentioned today we're not able to go quite as deep on every part of the industry. This is going to be that opportunity for us to do that. So throughout the course of the year, we're going to touch on office, retail, and housing. And the series has a goal of illuminating future challenges, trends, while amplifying discussions with the region's key stakeholders that do business directly in the sectors and with those folks that are dependent on the health and vitality of the real estate industry. Coverage of the panel style discussions are going to both appear in our products, in our e-newsletters, and in video form, and going to be integrated across a large portion of our products. We're really excited to launch this year. It's an outgrowth of some of the things we've learned over the past year. We realize there's an appetite for us to go deeper into some of these sections. And so the first one is going to be on June 10th. We're going to do a deep dive into retail. The next 2 are in August and December. Promotion is going to start in the weeks leading up to the event. And if you're interested in supporting the series, there are sponsorships available, and you can contact Sarah Brown at sarahbrown@bpcdm.com. We've got a great program for you, and throughout the program, we're going to be highlighting our sponsors. And our presenting sponsor today is longtime sponsor, Polk County Housing Trust Fund, which is doing some fantastic work in the community. And now we're going to play a quick video for you to watch.
We're working together to assure a better quality of life for residents.
To build a better economy for businesses and employers.
To provide better housing options for all.
Better begins with the development and implementation of a regional housing plan.
Join us on April 23rd for a conversation about achieving housing equity, affordability, and accessibility in Metro Des Moines.
All right, here to tell you a little bit more is Lauren Johnson. She's the Director of Communications and Community Outreach at Polk County Housing Trust Fund. Lauren, welcome.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you all this morning. And the Polk County Housing Trust Fund is honored to be a sponsor and support this important annual event. So, like many of you, the pandemic served as a catalyst for much of our work, and we're carrying forward much of that focus and related momentum and lessons learned around housing. In the past year, the Polk County Housing Trust Fund has been working to ensure that every family in Polk County has an equitable, accessible, and affordable place to call home. We're continuing this effort by focusing on 3 initiatives: housing justice, COVID-19 response, and, as you just saw, regional housing policy. So here are three quick examples to demonstrate each of these. The Polk County Housing Trust Fund began exploring the complicated legacy of redlining and urban renewal in April of 2019. In 2020, this work came into greater focus as racial justice came to the forefront of our national and local dialogue. In educating over 5,000 individuals in our community about the lasting effects of this historical discrimination, we're one step closer to creating more equitable housing options in the Des Moines Metro. Ensuring that people of color have greater housing options and reduced barriers to that housing is more important than ever. Working hand in hand with initiatives like One Economy, we will help pave the way to a more just and compassionate community for all. Now, in working with landlords and tenants at the Polk County Justice Center, the Polk County Housing Trust Fund saved 1,017 households from eviction in Polk County, including 1,042 children between September 2020 and February 2021. That's over 1,000 households in just 6 months. Now, we know that the financial impact of COVID-19 will continue to have many area residents facing the possibility of eviction in the coming months. Thanks to the Polk County's Justice Center project and the support of public and private partners, we will continue to be a resource for these vulnerable residents and concerned landlords. And now we turn our focus to an area where many of you have an influence: expanding housing options for all families in our growing region. As we know, the region is expected to add 150,000 new jobs, generating 84,000 households in the coming years. To attract and retain these workers, they must have access to a variety of housing options, preferably within the communities that they choose to work. We will continue to work with governmental and business leaders, planners, and developers to ensure all communities include affordable housing in their future development plans. And as we wrap up our 10th annual Affordable Housing Week, I'd like you to join us tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for our Here We Grow Symposium, where we'll be sharing strategies for creating equitable, affordable, and accessible growth in Metro Des Moines. So please click the link in the chat to register for this special event. And thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Lauren, and thank you again for your support of the Commercial Real Estate Forum. I put it in the chat, but we partnered up with Lauren and her team and Eric over there last summer to take our readers on a tour of the Undesign the Red Line tour. You can check that out on Facebook. I put the link in the chat there for you. I'd highly encourage you to check it out. It was really informative and really helped shape a lot of the things that we've been doing over the past year. All right, it's now my pleasure to introduce you to the president of BPC, Susanna DeBaca. Susanna, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, hello everybody, and thank you, Chris. On behalf of the Business Record and as an Iowa State grad, I am very, very pleased to be able to introduce Dean David Spalding, who is our presenter of the Iowa State University Ivy College of Business Commercial Real Estate Professional of the Year Award. But first, a little bit about Dean Spalding. So among his considerable accomplishments as the leader of the Ivy College of Business, and perhaps the most relevant to us here today, was the introduction in the fall of 2019 of a master's program in real estate. The MREM program prepares working professionals for career success in the real estate industry, like many of you watching today. In addition to learning from faculty who are leaders in their field, students in this program are assigned a real estate mentor, which gives them really hands-on experience with somebody who knows what's going on. It's also worth noting that under Dean Spalding's leadership, the Iowa State University MBA program has made the list of the top 50 MBA programs in the country. So go Dean Spalding and go Cyclones. I'll turn it over to you.
Great, Susanna, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And it's really a pleasure to be here with all of you today. And, you know, when the Business Record originally approached us about sponsoring this annual award for the Commercial Real Estate Professional of the Year, we really jumped on this. As Susanna suggested, the commercial real estate field is becoming an increasingly important area for us. We first launched the Master Real Estate Development that Susanna mentioned. We did that in partnership with our College of Design. And our College of Design, as many of you know, has one of the top architecture programs in the country, one of the top community planning programs in the country. So it was a natural to come together with them around this program and provide working professionals the chance to really advance their careers. It's an online program. It's designed for those busy working professionals, provides great networking opportunities with your fellow students, great networking opportunities with the very experienced real estate professionals who serve as mentors in that program. Now, if this Master Real Estate Development sounds like it's of interest to you or of interest to folks that you know, people within your company, please reach out directly to me, David Spalding at the Ivy College of Business, and I'll make sure to make the connections with you to our team. And we're looking at other areas to expand our real estate programs as well. This is such an important industry to our state, to the region. We want to be actively engaged in this area. So today I'm really excited to introduce Mark Rupprecht as the 2021 Ivy College of Business Real Estate Professional of the Year. Mark is president of R&R Realty Group. He also has a finance degree from the Ivy College of Business. When Mark was named president of R&R Realty in October of 2007, little did he know that the Great Recession was looming right around the corner, making it a less than ideal time to be taking the reins of a commercial real estate development and management company. Many real estate companies vanished during this time, but under Mark's leadership and the company's history of strategic investments, R&R not only survived, but continued to grow. So much so, several years later, Mark saw an opportunity to expand in the Omaha market, and the company was positioned to do so. Suku Radia wrote of this decision. He didn't jump into it. Instead, he did his diligence and hired the right person to lead the charge into Omaha. This led to a very successful Omaha operation. Mark's influence is felt both inside and outside the walls of the company's West Des Moines headquarters. He's known as a willing mentor to members of his staff and others in the community, respected for both his business acumen and his wide-ranging community involvement. One of the attributes, quote, one of the attributes I admire the most about Mark is his willingness to mentor, teach, and grow those coming up behind him in this community and in his work, wrote Christy Knaus, Executive Director of the Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines. She went on to say, you simply need to step foot in the new R&R Realty headquarters in West Des Moines to see he values collaboration, collective impact, and walking alongside those he works with every day. Mark serves on the boards of the Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines, the Greater Des Moines Partnership, the Iowa State University Research Park, and the Ivy College of Business Dean's Advisory Council. In addition, he's a member of the Greater Des Moines Committee and the Young Presidents Organization. The Debbie and Jerry Ivy College of Business at Iowa State University, in conjunction with the Business Record, is proud to recognize Mark Rupprecht as the 2021 Commercial Real Estate Professional of the Year. Please join me in congratulating Mark.
Well, thank you very much, Dean Spalding. Thanks for the great introduction, your kind comments, and certainly for sponsoring this specific award. I'm glad to be with you all today, and I'm really extremely honored and humbled to be named the Commercial Real Estate Professional of the Year. This recognition really is even more impactful to me when you look at the past honorees of this award, who really have been just outstanding leaders in our commercial real estate industry. I'd like to thank the Business Record for selecting me for this honor, and just for the wonderful job that they do in putting together this event each year. And it really just puts a spotlight on our commercial real estate industry so that we can go through and discuss what's going on and the trends that we are seeing. I'd like to thank Suku Radia, who nominated me for this award. Suku's been a great friend, mentor to me over the years, and he's just really set such a great example of someone who does an outstanding job of giving back to this community. You know, I think this recognition is really not possible without the people that work here at R&R, and I think we really have a great group of talented and hardworking individuals that really come to work every day, focused on teamwork and continuous improvement. I just like to thank all of them for the great work that they do here at R&R. They're certainly a big part of this recognition. You know, my journey in commercial real estate started back in 1987. And well, if you do the math, I guess on that, that's, you know, over 30 years ago. But I'm an Iowa State grad. I had just graduated from Iowa State with a degree in finance. At that time, I decided to join my father, who started the company just a couple of years prior to my graduation. You know, at that time, we were just a young company that was evolving into a family business. And, you know, we were fortunate to have a lot of growth over the years. And I am certainly very grateful for the opportunities that I've been given during my career. And I'd just like to thank my family for their ongoing support. As many of you know, we don't accomplish success or any achievement without the help of others along the way. And I've been fortunate to work with so many people in my career that have helped me, coached me, advised me, even inspired me. And I remember one of those individuals who told me that a smart person learns from their own experience, but a wise person learns from the experiences of others. And I've always tried to learn from others and their experience, and also sharing my experiences with them, because I'm a big believer in the value of sharing experiences with others. And you'll be amazed how sharing your own experiences can influence those around you. Again, thank you for this recognition, and I'm truly honored.
Congratulations again, Mark, on a fantastic honor and for your leadership over the years. We're really happy to have this opportunity to honor you. And I promise that one of our future ones, when you can hear that loud applause from everybody, you would have gotten a big, nice applause today. The chat's full of comments of people saying thank you and congratulations. And we'll make sure to get that opportunity to get that round of applause here in the future. All right, onto our program. Here's a quick reminder on how this is going to work. We've got 8 speakers. Each speaker is going to go one at a time, and they're going to provide a 2 to 3, 4-minute response to the question. Today's questions were crafted and will be asked by our very talented and hardworking commercial real estate reporter, senior staff writer, Kathy Bolton. The questions are designed to help get to the heart of some key issues facing the industry. And if time allows, Kathy might be able to ask a quick follow-up question or two, but then we're going to move along to the next speaker. If you've got questions for the speakers, please feel free to use the Q&A function or the chat. You can find those on the bottom of the screen. Depending on timing, we're not quite sure. We think we've got this timed right today. We might have some time at the end for some follow-up questions that Kathy will ask. She might pick from some of those questions in the Q&A, but we've also let the panelists know that they can respond to your questions in the Q&A as well if you have a direct question for them. So our first speaker today is Randy Ripperger. He is the Polk County Assessor. Kathy, go ahead and take it away with your first question.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Randy, for joining us. We know that everyone's gotten their new 2021 property assessments. Can you sort of talk about how COVID affected those assessments and which area has been hit the hardest?
Sure. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Kathy, for having me on your panel today. And congratulations to Mark. Very happy for you. What a great achievement. Good morning, everyone. Here we are just 1 year into the COVID crisis, this worldwide pandemic that's caused a swift, wide, deep global economic recession. And normally in a recession, properties typically lose value, but not necessarily so this time around. I've been asked to talk about the effect of COVID-19 on property values here in Polk County. And like Kathy said, pretty good timing since 2021 is a reassessment year. And we just notified property owners of their new assessments less than a month ago. So I'll start out first with multifamily properties. Demand appears to remain very strong with both local and out-of-state investors contributing to the high volume of transactions we're seeing. We raised multifamily properties 22% based on the strong data we had from the market. Really didn't see any effect of the pandemic on the multifamily market, but if there was an effect from the pandemic, it probably occurred in the Class C properties, which we will look at on a case-by-case basis. We believe COVID-19 had a positive impact on industrial market in 2020. With consumers being concerned about in-person shopping, many went to the internet to buy their products, everything from clothing to school supplies to groceries and so on. Demand for warehouse and distribution space was strong before COVID-19, and we believe even stronger after COVID-19 hit. And we reflected that by raising warehouses 35%. Office property, we believe the pandemic will have an effect on office property values. We just don't know what that impact is yet. And I don't think anybody knows yet. It's still being played out in the market. You know, we figure probably Class B and C properties got hurt. Class A properties, maybe not as much, but we don't know yet. So we're going to wait and see how that all plays out. And we will address that in the 2023 reassessment. Same thing for retail property. It's having an effect on retail properties. We just need more market data to measure that impact. You know, retail is challenging because the different segments that make up that sector. Some of those segments did very well in 2020, such as grocery stores, home improvement stores, fast food restaurants, and drugstores. Other segments appeared to have experienced a negative impact from the pandemic. So again, we're going to have to wait and see and let it play out, and we'll address that in the 2023 reassessment. Now, hotels, the pandemic hit hotels and restaurants harder than any other sector in Des Moines. In a matter of days, the hotel industry went from a record-breaking performance to zero, zip, lock the doors and go home. Now, it's important to remember hotels, unlike office properties and retail properties, they don't have long-term leases. Their leases are 24 hours. So they're not protected from the immediate effects of the pandemic like other properties might have been with long-term leases. And looking at the hotel industry, unprecedented and shocking metrics that occurred in 2020. It's anticipated it could take 3 to 4 years for the hotel industry to return to normal. Most sources that we checked indicated a 20 to 40% loss in value due to the pandemic, and we took hotel properties down 30% for the 2021 assessments. With restaurants, a very similar story. Most experts are reflecting discounts of 20 to 40% to the pre-COVID levels, and we reduced them by 30% as well. So in closing, the effects of the pandemic on property values and assessments will continue to unfold for many years and very well could have a lasting impact on real estate markets. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate your comments. We're going to go on to our next speaker now. Up next is Jennifer Cooper. She's the Vice President and Manager at Bankers Trust, also a former Commercial Real Estate Pro of the Year Award winner. Kathy, go ahead and ask the next question.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us. Can you talk a little bit about how the criteria for providing financing for a project has changed since from the time before COVID to now, and sort of what kind of projects are banks willing to lend money for and which are getting a hard no?
Thanks, Kathy. Hello, everyone. I want to take a minute and congratulate Mark Rupprecht. It's so deserving. I am still pretty humbled and sometimes a bit shocked that I'm even in a list with Mark and all the past honorees. They've contributed so much to our community. So lending before and lending after, it might be too soon to say, like we keep talking, but it does feel like there is a longer or long-term shift in how projects are underwritten and financed due to this pandemic. So every bank looks at a real estate project, and the primary source of repayment is always the rents or cash flow from the business. The that source of repayment pretty much evaporated overnight for some types of property. So banks also have always looked at a secondary and tertiary source of repayment. The secondary source is typically the sponsor or the guarantor of the loan, and what other resources do they have if something happens to your primary source? What kind of support do you have there? The tertiary support's always been, foreclosure, collection, and sale of the property, which no bank ever wants to get to. So I believe that, and what we're experiencing now as we go to loan committee and try to get new loans approved, we're spending a lot deeper dive time into global cash flow, into the portfolio that an investor or real estate developer has to see what other properties have risks that could affect their ability to help support the loan. And we are also, my credit people have always wanted, and now they have a reason to get it. They're looking for covenants around the guarantor's liquidity or net worth, or some other way to assure that the guarantor we start a project with is the guarantor that's there in the middle and there at the end. So, and the other big change that I think will keep occurring is the amount of equity required for a project on the front end. That helps both with the primary repayment and debt coverage, and it also helps if you get to that tertiary, part. If your advance rate isn't as high, there's less risk for the bank, and we're in that risk mitigation type business. So, the other thing to just comment about, the before and after from a lending standpoint, we're having to spend a lot more time at the banks reviewing existing loans. We have a lot of examiners, auditors, regulators, everyone wanting to periodically check on how every property is doing. But when we take a new project in, there's so many questions about COVID impact, resiliency of the project and the tenants to COVID, and what recovery time might be if COVID, carries on longer or has a big resurgence. Credit approvers are basically looking for that lender to give them the answers that shows this would be magically safe to do the loan. And it's a high bar to cover, and it's frustrating, exhausting, and time consuming. And I think the timelines for approval of projects, your expectations of the turnarounds we've been able to deliver in the past, we might not be able to do it that way just for the depth of the analysis we need to do. So all that said, I've looked at the property groups as, there's the good, the maybe bad, the bad, and the extremely ugly. So industrial obviously is the darling for all lenders. During the height of the pandemic, we were eager to lend on industrial. We could be aggressive on a loan structure, advance rates, terms, even speculative deals got approved. And I think the pandemic really did take what was an already strong demand for industrial and actually accelerated that demand. So industrials in the top end of this category. Multifamily is next. There was a small blip at the beginning of the pandemic, concerns about rent collections, huge increases in vacancy. But once the stimulus money started coming out, those fears receded pretty quickly, and multifamily project financing marched on relatively unscathed. There's still extremely great options through the agencies for perm financing, and it's a basic need for people. It's a place to live. I think the bigger risk for multifamily that we're starting to see is the rise in cost to a level that just can't be supported by different areas' incomes to pay the rent necessary to make the deals pencil out. So that's where we're at with multifamily. So the may be bad. Office held its own. Most tenants paid rent, even if all their employees were remote. Time will just tell when we get to lease maturities and rollovers. Do they want less space because they've got a lot of remote workers, or do they need more space because they need to socially distance in the office? I'm hopeful that the two shifts offset each other, and we carry forward. Could I get a multi-tenant spec office building approved today without extremely strong secondary or guarantor support? No. Could I get a credit single tenant or an owner-occupied deal done? Not a problem. And even if there's pre-leasing to strong tenants to at least a break even, those could possibly happen. So in the bad category would be retail. It's highly unlikely I would be able to refinance another bank's loan on a property or get financing for a new property. We have to do an extremely deep dive into the credit of the tenant, how it performed during COVID, lease rollover timing, and again, that whole secondary repayment source, sponsor and guarantor support. Some retail has been deemed COVID proof is kind of the word we're using. And it's similar to what Randy mentioned, grocery stores, drugstores. You've got the Best Buy and Dick's Sporting Goods stores. Those that already had robust omni-channel options seem to survive relatively well. And then service retail is another one that stayed pretty strong. Your dental, eyeglasses, cell phone stores, and the similar types. We have had some good sales rebounds for general merchandising retailers in the local area, but it's too soon to know if their parent company, or because of the impacts other places in the country, if those parent companies will survive. So retail is still an extremely tough lift, and I've been passing on most of what I've been seeing, unless it was in those COVID-proof areas. And so the only hard no, truly ugly category, like Randy had mentioned, is hospitality. Most banks are still making accommodations and modifications for existing hotel loans. There's not willingness to consider refinancing and new projects to start being entertained. My best guess would be it'd be into 22 and 23 before new hospitality project financing could even be considered. And even then, it's going to take a lot more equity, and again, that guarantor support. So in my closing, to investors and developers and those out there, when you come to your banker and we request a ton more information than before, and we make you a little crazy asking the same question 10 different ways, be patient, help us help you. We're getting, I guess, inundated with reviews and reports and trying to keep up on how's it all going to end. For lots of audiences, there's still just a ton of oversight, and no bank wants to add to a portfolio that already still has some stresses that are being worked out from the pandemic. So thank you very much. Back to Chris or Kathy. Or
Thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate it. And great comments once again. Thanks for walking us through the different areas. I know that one of our speakers is going to talk a little bit about omni-channel and retail coming up here in a little bit. So we'll make sure to dive a little bit deeper into that. All right, our next speaker is Brad Deets. He's the Development Services Director for the City of Waukee. Kathy, go ahead and take it away with the next question.
Hi, Brad, and thanks for joining us. Talk a little bit about, we wanted to look at how the pandemic is affecting individual cities. So talk about sort of the pace of development in Waukee. Did projects stall before the pandemic or during the pandemic, or were they put on hold? And right now, are developers bringing projects to the city?
Sure. Well, first of all, Kathy and the Business Record, again, thanks for having me on this panel today as well. I don't think Waukee was unique or alone last year in that we saw very significant development occur within our community. In fact, from an overall valuation standpoint, it was our very best year, approximately $245 million in new valuation, which was actually about a 15% increase beyond our previous best year, which happened to be in 2019. Certainly residential, which has always been Waukee's sort of bread and butter, continued to have phenomenal gains in that. We actually issued the most amount of single family permits we'd ever issued in 2020 with 411. Put that in perspective, the prior 5-year average was about 250 single family permits per year. So almost double what we typically see. And we're really on track for that again this year of having another record breaking year in the 3.5 months since the beginning of January. The city has issued 238 single family permits. So by far, this will be a record breaking year as well if that trend continues. We also saw a large uptick just in home remodels and decks, and I think in large part just because people were home so much. People making improvements and investment in their homes, particularly for those that are working from home now today versus in the office prior. And then finally, on the residential side, we platted over 600 new single family lots in 2020. So really, we've set ourselves up for success this year. In terms of just overall development, we really did not see a reduction. We had several commercial projects as well. 2020 was in the top 3 in terms of new commercial valuation and new projects. And we've really geared and set some of those projects up for success this year. Whereas a lot of those were approved in 2020, they are now under construction. We had very few in terms of had been approved and didn't start or were delayed. And quite honestly, overall, in terms of our business community, we saw very few losses in terms of existing businesses within our community. So, from Waukee's perspective, things are continue to go strong. And really on the commercial side of things, there's sort of that need as our population continues to explode. There's really a need for those personal services, restaurants, things of that nature that we're just seeing a lot of success in within our community.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it. And thanks for your comments. We are going to go on to our, before we continue with our program, we're going to bring on one of our supporting sponsors today, Catherine Kunert. She's the Vice President of Economic Connections and Integration at Mid-American Energy. We're going to talk a little bit about building costs later on in the program, but one thing businesses and business owners, especially our industrial business owners, know that is exceptionally valuable is to have cheap and also clean energy to power their buildings. Catherine, welcome, and thank you for sponsoring today.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate being here and very proud to be a sponsor again of this CBRE panel and great discussion that you're having so far. And again, congratulations to Mark Rupprecht. Proud of you. Glad to know you and also to be a partner of you as well as your great business that you run here in our region. So first and foremost, thank you all for being our customer. And we're proud to be your utility partner. As Chris so kindly mentioned, the value and the importance of the utilities as you all make decisions. And as we like to say, we're more than your father's utility. We're definitely more than your grandfather's utility, meaning we're much more than just a pipes and wire company. And we know that you actually have a choice to determine where you do your business and where you choose to grow, expand, and develop. So we like to bring to you that competitive and economic advantage in collaboration with the work that we do. And I'm fortunate and blessed to be able to support you through the economic development work that Mid-American is so proud to do with each and every one of you. And you often hear us talk about the three-legged stool, and that's the reliability, the affordability, and the renewable piece. And so as we look at that, obviously the affordability is huge. Like you and many of you have mentioned, being able to afford the utilities is huge. And so we also recognize that there's environmental justice and social justice in our space as well. And it's a focus of ours. So we make sure that we have the affordable rates that allow for people to not only be successful here in our space, but also to be able to grow and expand. And so we're proud to have the 13th lowest rates in the country. And then you tie that into the reliability piece, because that's incredibly important for people to know if they're manufacturing or it's housing or small business, they need to know that their power is there when they need it. We get reminded of that on a very regular basis as we think about derechos or the cold snaps that we have, as we now know as polar vortexes, right? And we're a critical partner when it comes to that as well. And we're very intolerant, I would say, of not having our power there when we want it and need it. So Mid-American's very aggressive with our reliability as well, because we have to keep you safe. And that's at the core of all the work that we do. So when you look at those two pieces, we've got a great track record. And then the next place then is obviously with the renewables and supporting people's sustainability goals. And so we have an amazing track record there to be your partner to help deliver on those three important pieces of people as they look at their business. And through our Green Advantage program, we're now able to deliver all of our Iowa customers as being part of our service area, renewable energy at the 83% level. That means all of the energy that we provided to you last year on an annual basis was delivered to you with our renewable energy services and generation. So we're excited. That's industry leading. It's leading in the country. And we know that it's very important for all of you to work with us to provide that affordable, reliable, and sustainable renewable energy for your businesses and for your homes. And additionally, obviously, you often hear me say as well that obsessively, relentlessly is more than just a tagline to us. It's at our 6 core principles. It's how we deliver on our customer first. And it's a huge part of who we are through our CARES program, which is our corporate citizenship program, where we reinvest into our community, both with our energy, our employees' time and talent, and also our financial resources. So we're proud to be a partner of the community. We're proud to be a partner with you as our customers. And most importantly, we thank you for being our partner as well.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you again for helping support the commercial real estate firm. We really appreciate it. All right, we're going to move on to our next speaker. And our next speaker is Dan Drendel. He's the principal at Slingshot Architecture. Kathy, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for joining us. Talk a little bit about how the pandemic affected designs for new or remodeled office buildings and other spaces.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody on the panel. It's great to be a part of this event today, and I appreciate these topics that we're covering. First of all, I think looking at just short-term and returning to the office, we're definitely seeing people dealing with and trying to figure out how to socially distance their staff coming back, analyzing the circulation patterns of their staff so that people can, interact in the right way and socially distance in the right way. But I think that's a relatively short-term effect in what we're seeing. We've had a few office clients even moving currently and preparing for people coming back. So we've seen a real shift in focus on employee health, both mentally and in amenity spaces and in offerings even from their leaders, which is kind of exciting to see that care for the team. And then, more research and focus on air quality as well. We've actually installed just recently outdoor air into our office because our office was about 15 years old and that wasn't a code requirement at that time. So, making sure that those systems are providing for healthy work environments. But I think in the future and moving forward, and I think there is a shift in the office real estate in particular. I think it was kind of brewing before COVID, and COVID turned out to be a proof of concept that people like increasing flexibility and the ability to work from home at times. And so in a recent Gensler survey, they were finding that most people in the work environment were going to be looking for 1 to 2 days remote or not in the office. And so I think the big change then is that we're going to see a shift in the purpose of the office. You know, a vital office and an important office will be a place where people come together and what's important about how they come together. And so it'll be a little bit less about, you know, that individual's workspace and a focus on the common areas that might be for collaboration or where you can bring groups of people together for consensus building, gathering and social connection, and then also still a place where you can come and actually have deep dive space, focus time. So think about a library study hall type of environment, you know. So if that's really the trend that arrives here, we have a successful workforce that wants to spend, you know, up to 2 days a week somewhere else than the office. For the same size team, we're going to have a reduction of square footage needed to pull that off. So, you know, that could be a trend that we definitely see. The office clients that we've worked with recently since the pandemic in particular basically pulled the trigger on this type of strategy. Something that they were considering beforehand, and really pulled the trigger on a space that was less addressed and more focused on these collaboration environments. So I think what's going to be important then as we look at that world is that these designs that we're working on and thinking about with these with our office spaces in our community are really specific to our own cultures and the authenticity of the work that we're doing, and that it's responding to that, because that'll continue to facilitate talent attraction, transparency in how our office teams and cultures work, and what people enjoy about being in the office together. I think there could be a bit of a tie too to, you know, we've seen co-working success come in over time, of course, for kind of entrepreneurial companies to start up. There's an ecosystem need to that, where we see in micro retail design, where we provide commercial spaces that are kind of easy to start up for an entrepreneur, where all of the amenities are shared and the space is very simple to move into. That's a need that we're seeing and hearing about in the office world as well. So kind of, you know, shared amenities amongst kind of startup businesses that need more than co-working, but less than a full office build out. That could be something that you know, fills the need in the transitioning square footage of office space. The only other thing I wanted to share was we talked a little bit about the adjacent markets in hotels and in multifamily living and urban living. We were already seeing and then an intensifying of this idea of abilities to work inside their own spaces. So even smaller apartment units having kind of built-in desks or concealable areas for desking, and then lobby spaces in both hotels and apartment buildings, becoming a space that can also flex to co-working during the day, and even meeting spaces being included in those. So with these shifts going around, the real estate kind of behaves different. We see that. I do think that Des Moines will be a big winner with this, as the choice of where you live isn't totally tied to where your office is. I think Des Moines already has a lot of momentum of people wanting to come and live here. The quality of life and affordability is fantastic. And we're really seeing a lot of mid-sized metros capture people already to their downtown centers. And I think as the choice metrics are kind of increased by not being necessarily tied to the Chicago and Minneapolis to stay with those companies that might be there, I think Des Moines will really have a lot of success attracting those people that might be working remotely to other cities. So I'm really optimistic for what it all means for Des Moines.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate your comments. And we're going to move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is another Rupprecht, but this is Paul Rupprecht. So Paul is the president of R&R Real Estate Advisors. Kathy, go ahead and ask Paul a question.
Hi, Paul, and thanks for joining us. We've heard a lot about industrial and warehouse development is booming, especially during COVID. Explain a little bit about why, but more importantly, what is, even after COVID, what is the outlook for industrial and warehouse development in the coming 12 to 18 months?
Yes, thanks, Kathy, and thanks Business Record for this opportunity to sit on the panel. And obviously, I want to congratulate my brother Mark, well-deserved award, and certainly want to thank him for his leadership at R&R. So why all the development? Well, number one, obvious, is the growth of e-commerce, and we knew that this growth was already happening. The pandemic just certainly accelerated this trend. Those companies who had the 5 and 10-year expansion plans in place, after this pandemic, those got compressed to 2 and 3-year plans just almost overnight. A lot of people are calling it the Amazon effect, and this is just a mind shift of customers who are really pushing to get goods delivered faster. And the impact that that's having on companies, and especially larger retailers, they're beginning to open up these last mile delivery centers, and they're trying to meet customer demand as well as try to compete with Amazon. And then you also have the explosive growth of the 3PLs, the third-party logistic companies. And these companies have really gobbled up quite a bit of our available space in our market. Number two, the second reason is inventories are on the rise. With this growing on-demand culture, companies are really scrambling to keep up. In order for them to keep up, they need to keep more of their product on hand. Also, they need to store this product, their product closer to the customers, and be prepared for supply chain disruptions, which obviously happened during COVID, and it continues to be an issue. So all of this, with all this, companies are needing to expand their warehousing footprint. And the last thing is just pent-up demand. Just like a lot of companies, a lot of us, we experienced a pause during COVID, and now everyone is just playing catch up. So those are really the 3 reasons why the explosive development. As you look into the outlook on future development in the next year, certainly the surge of activity will continue. What we're seeing is that large users who are entering our market and companies that are currently here and need to expand, there's beginning to be a shortage of really the large blocks of available space, and those spaces that are over 100,000 square feet in size. And this is driving new construction and development to meet this demand. Also, you know, we certainly have the availability of abundant ground, and that's in close proximity to 8035. So we're seeing an increase of outside developers entering this market. And just a couple of examples I wanted to give are some of the new ones to announce. The Northridge 8035 development, located in Des Moines, just off that northeast 14th Street interchange. They plan to bring in a total, when the project's all said and done, about 1 million square feet of space. The developer is Ilex, and they're out of Minneapolis, and they've retained Opus as their contractor, but they do have plans to start construction this year. That's their phase 1, which includes two new warehouses, which will total over 300,000 square feet. Other plans is to open up that phase 1 in 2022. The second development announced was Altus Commerce Center. This is located in Altoona. It's close to Amazon's fulfillment center, and when that project is complete, add about 1 million square feet to the market. This developer is Van Trust. They're based out of Kansas City, and they do plan to start construction this year, adding a 265,000 square foot warehouse, which will plan to open in 2022. So those are just a couple of examples. And both those developments are in the northeast quadrant of the Des Moines area. But we're also seeing strong activity in the northwest segment as well, which includes Urbandale and Grimes. Obviously, this is helped by the recent completion of interchanges along the urban loop in Urbandale. And here at R&R, we have plans to continue to add to our warehouse portfolio in this area. And we have available land that can add an additional 1.5 million square feet. So 2021 is shaping up to be a busy construction year, with 2022 being a strong delivery year of new product.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. We're going to move on to our next speaker, and that is Tyler Dingel. He's the Senior Vice President at CBRE Hubbell Commercial. Tyler's going to share his screen, so we'll give him a second to get things going there as well. But Kathy, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Tyler, and thanks for joining us. As Paul mentioned, you know, e-commerce is going to continue to grow even after the pandemic. So how is that going to kind of affect how retailers sell to consumers directly? How will that sort of mesh with also maintaining a brick and mortar presence?
Sure. Well, thank you, Kathy and Chris and the Business Record for having the event, and also want to say congrats to Mark on a well-deserved award. Before I share the screen, I'm going to talk about a few things that that really kind of get to the question that's answered or has been asked. But it all comes down to this buzzword that we've been hearing in retail, not just since COVID, but really over the past several years, is omni-channel retail. And there are a lot of definitions for omni-channel retail out there, but to sum it up, it's really the ability to order and receive anything at any time and anywhere. And it all has to happen through a seamless consumer experience. A lot of retailers out there are struggling, trying to figure out how do they keep their brand consistent across all phases of that omni-channel process. I'm kind of a numbers guy, so I wanted to talk about a few statistics. So e-commerce, which I think is probably unbeknownst to many, prior to COVID, was only made up about 12% of all retail sales. Now, we saw a substantial jump in that number as soon as COVID hit, and even into the second quarter of 2020, that number increased by 35% from where it was at 12% of all retail up to 16% of all retail being done online. Obviously, the big dog on the block there is Amazon. They make up approximately 50% of all e-commerce is done through Amazon. Just in Q4 of 2020 alone, Amazon did $125.6 billion in sales. That was a 44% increase over the prior Q4 of 2019. And Amazon has nearly 2 million retailers that sell products in and through their site. Now, retailers over the past year have taken the opportunity to use some of this research and data that's come out of the online ordering to find out exactly who their customers are, where they live. If a consumer was driving to, from, say, consumers driving from North Central Iowa down to Shields and purchasing an item, they may not have that consumer data. If they're ordering that item online and having it shipped, they know exactly where that consumer is coming from. And so it's helped our retailers figure out where are their customers at, where should they locate stores, where is that demand. The other thing that's really impacted that is the mobile data, really your cell phone. The technology out there has the ability to ping your phone and figure out not only when you're there, how long you stay there, where you came from before you got there, and where you go afterwards. So all of this technology and all this data is really driving a lot of the decisions that are being made by our retailers. I want to share my screen real quick because there's a model that CBRE has put together, and hopefully you guys are all seeing this, that I think does a really nice job of taking a look at what the future of a retail store would be. Now, this is something that we're all familiar with seeing, which is a preferred parking for those who shop online and pick up in store. If you want to take that a step further, which again we see this locally here, is your curbside pickup. Don't even have to get out of your vehicle. You pull up to the curbside, provide them your order number, they deliver it right to your vehicle, and you're on your way. Again, all these items are really focused around consumer ability for consumers to ease of use, ease of access, and making it very easy for them to pick up and purchase their products. As we go into the store, you're going to see an area here that is focused on order pickup, but also return items. This is an issue that retailers are really struggling with right now, is the amount of items that are purchased online, but then are returned. Based on some stats I pulled up, approximately 30% of online orders are then returned. That's a huge expense for these retailers. And there's warehouses even here in Des Moines that really kind of specialize in that return order process, where you'll see crates of items that are loaded up, big boxes full of items that are sold at pennies on the dollar, because it's much cheaper to do that than it is to try and ship that item back to the retailer, restock and resell that item. So retailers are still trying to get their arms around this, but I think you're going to see retailers offer customers incentives to return that item to the store versus having it shipped back. You can see these containers here. Really what kind of happens, you go in, you put your order number in, it'll give you a code to one of these lockers that you can go and pick up your items. And then again, if you have a return, the same process, you go in, get assigned a locker, you process your return, and perhaps maybe then you get a 15% off your next order type of a incentive to either stay and shop that day or to come back to the site. Retailers are also going to focus on how do they maximize their sale while you're in the store. And this is what they've looked at as kind of a virtual try-on area. It allows you to look at different designs, different sizes, different products, try them on, see how the fit and feel is. You know, you could, from there, you can customize the design of the item, the color of the item. You can add logos and things like that to it. All of that is part of that consumer experience to drive that customer in the store to provide them with something that they can't get online. If you take that a step further, it goes into this design studio area. This is where a consumer really has the ability to sit down with a design expert and figure out exactly how they want their product to look and to feel. It gives them that sense of really creating something and designing their space or their item themselves. You know, a good example of this is recently my wife is doing some new house renovations and some new color schemes. Well, of course, I've learned that those colors have to match not closely, but identically. So, you know, she may come in and see these pillows up here and love the design and the look of them, but the color's off a little bit. You can actually bring in your color palette. You can bring in that color sample with your design expert and design that item so that it matches identically to what you're trying to achieve with the look and feel. Now, the biggest change that we're going to see here, and I want everybody to kind of focus, let me get into the warehouse here, but focus up here on the top right side of the screen, is if you look at this retail box as it sits today, you know, historically, your retail box would be, say, 80% showroom, 20% back of the house. Paul touched on this as well, but we're going to see those warehouse areas really start to increase in size and focus a lot on order fulfillment. Excuse me. So you can see where you've got different areas where items are being brought in on the dock doors, packaged up, and then either delivered to customers or brought up front for customer pickup in a couple of those different areas that we talked about. So, you know, again, retailers are really having to redesign how they look at their spaces, but overall retail is very strong. And that's a mix of both the brick and mortar and the e-commerce presence. And those that really win out are those that are going to be able to figure out how to blend those two together through that omni-channel process.
Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate you taking us on a little tour there. That was interesting to take a look at and see what we might be seeing here in the very near future. So, all right. Before we go on to our next speaker, we do have a message from one of our other sponsors, Henning Construction Company. We're going to hear a short video from them.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Kevin Tubbs. I'm the Director of Business Development with Henning Companies. Unfortunately, I can't join you in person today, so you get this video. I would like to thank the panelists for sharing their expertise and joining us today. And I'd also like to congratulate Mark Rupprecht on his award. It's very well deserved. I also want to thank the Business Record for sponsoring and organizing this event. It is always a great event. Henning Companies has been a sponsor for several years, and we're very proud to do it again. Henning Companies was established 97 years ago in Latimer, Iowa, in central Iowa, and we've been in the metro area for well over 30 years. Most people know us as one of the largest agricultural builders in the country. And that is true, but we also are a very well-respected commercial contractor in central Iowa. We've got experience in all different markets, industrial, warehousing, offices, and we can help you with all of your commercial real estate needs. So again, I'd like to thank the panelists and the Business Record, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.
thanks to Kevin and his team, and we appreciate Henning Construction's continued support of Commercial Real Estate Forum. All right, before we get to our last couple of speakers here, we're going to, Kathy, I want to give her a quick second here to give her just a little bit of time to talk about some of the things that she's been working to add in, some new features into Commercial Real Estate Weekly, which she puts together every Wednesday. Kathy, you want us to take a quick second and share some of those new features?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Last July, we started going through all the commercial real estate building permits, commercial building permits by city and in Polk County, and have created a database with an Excel spreadsheet and an interactive map that includes, all of the everything that was issued a building permit in 2020, and we're doing the same thing for 2021. And you can find that on our website. We've got a lot of good feedback, but if you have other ideas for things like that we could do, please let me or Chris or editor Emily Barsky know. The other thing we did a similar project with the new 2021 real estate property assessments for commercial properties. So you can find that interactive map on our website too. Thanks, Chris.
Kathy's been doing fantastic work, continuing to, of course, not only provide great reporting, but also some great resources for our audience to be able to use to help you do your business a little bit better. If you want to make sure that you're following along with her as well, we want to, of course, encourage you to sign up for the weekly e-newsletter. It's free, comes out on Wednesday. Best way to stay connected into the community of commercial real estate. You can do that at businessrecord.com/sign up, and I'll throw a link in the chat to that and a couple of those resources that Kathy was talking about. All right, our next speaker is Kalen Ludwig. She's the new construction specialist at People's Company. Kathy, go ahead and take it away with the question.
Hi, Kalen. Thanks for joining us. We all know that costs are rising, particularly with the cost of lumber and other raw materials. So what are experts predicting will happen with material costs in the next 12 months, and how's that going to impact home construction and maybe other developments that involve wood products?
Thank you, Kathy, for having me. And just to reiterate what everyone else is saying, thanks to everyone in the Business Record who's helping to put this event on. It's been a great annual event to attend, and very honored to be a part of it this year. So to answer your question about lumber and other rising materials, I think everyone knows that once the pandemic hit, everyone really expected the economy to shut down. We did not predict that housing would see the increase in demand that it has. Many manufacturers had to close or go to limited hours. It often takes several months for these manufacturer companies to get shut down, and then several months to open back up. So we're really kind of seeing delays with that. Most suppliers are pretty behind at this point, and still can't run to full capacity due to labor shortages. And then, as I mentioned, no one would have guessed that the demand would be this strong today during a pandemic. From talking to experts in the industry, unfortunately, we are hearing that lumber prices will remain elevated through much of 2021. Domestic production of lumber is increasing, so that's good news, but it's just not keeping pace with the demand that we're currently seeing. Also, cost of petroleum is creating price increases on materials such as shingles, vinyl, siding, and steel. We're seeing steel pricing going up about 4 to 8% per month. And this affects a lot of smaller things that you don't think about: fasteners, flashing, metal roofing, metal soffits. So kind of seeing increases across the board at this point. Pretty much all manufacturers in the residential housing industry are stating that raw materials, trucking shortages, labor shortages are driving up costs. And unavailability of material, OSB is a big concern right now. Appliances are, we're seeing 5 to 6 months to get appliances, and lights, hardware, the list kind of goes on and on. So really material shortages, I almost feel like is a bigger problem at the moment than price increases. So unless buyers suddenly just stop buying houses like they are, or mortgage rates increase and slow that demand, which I don't think many experts are expecting to happen in the short term, the prognosis is not good through at least the end of the year for material costs. NAHB recently released that lumber increases alone are about 24,000 on average nationally. So just with all these shortages and price increases, housing affordability is definitely a topic that I'm hearing every day. For every $1,000 increase, 1,770 Iowan families can no longer afford to purchase a home. So, I mean, it's a real concern. And so if you think 24,000 is the average increase nationally, that's 42,000 families that can now not afford to move up or purchase their first home. So definitely as a builder, something we're all keeping in mind and kind of watching closely. In closing, we're going to see new build pricings continue to rise for the next year, I would guess, and it's highly likely also that these build times are going to take us a little longer in the short term. I don't really have a clear answer when things will level off, but eventually demand will slow down with affordability becoming harder and harder as interest rates increases and higher prices make it harder to be affordable. And, that'll give the marketplace a chance to kind of regroup and breathe when that happens and get caught up. And but I also wanted to mention, Dan talked about Des Moines being such a good place to be. And I know we're all feeling very blessed in the new construction industry to be sitting here in Des Moines. I know being part of the Home Builders Association, we're weathering the storm of the pandemic a lot better than many other places nationally. We're seeing Des Moines be on national lists, stating Des Moines is one of the cities that's going to weather the storm and come out of the pandemic in a better situation than a lot of areas. So excited to see Des Moines continue to grow, and that's all I have today.
Thanks so much for your comments. We really appreciate it. We're going to go on now and stay on the topic of the home industry just a little bit here. And our next speaker is Kim Bakey. She's the CEO of HomeServices of Iowa. Kathy, go ahead and take it away with a question.
Hi, Kim. Thanks for joining us. So as Kalen referenced, the pandemic has ignited a housing boom, but talk a little bit about how this boom is different maybe from the one that occurred in the early 2000s. And Kalen also mentioned this. Talk about a little bit about populations that might be being priced out of the market.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Business Record, for this program. It's been a great one every year to follow. And congratulations, Mark, on your recognition today. Harkening back to the early 2000s, I had to get into memory banks here, but each housing cycle is pretty unique. And if I think back and we look at things from the early 2000s, inventory was abundant at that time, if I could use that term in comparison to today's environment. And financing back then was certainly a little less structured. There was a real push on home ownership with a wide range of programs and financing options out there, pushing the envelope, as we all know what happened then, 2008 and 10, 11, and so forth. A lot of debt to equity ratios that in some cases were 100% financing and created problems down the road. Today's environment and today's boom's a little more structured, and I might argue a little more responsible out there. We're seeing more aggressive financing options beginning to trickle in. We've got 100% FHA product that we've seen recently here, but the focus really remains on a solid debt to equity ratio out there and best practices in that arena. Prices, as Kalen mentioned, continue to elevate. Inventory is tight on both existing and new construction. That low inventory is driving price appreciation with existing homes, often multiple offer situations. We're in the Midwest, we're blessed. We're not quite to the point where what we're seeing on the coast with 60, 70, even upwards of 90 plus offers on a single listing. But through all that, home prices are appreciating there. New construction prices are being driven up with supply cost increases and things such as that we're seeing on the builder front, and Kalen certainly addressed that. Our inventory today in central Iowa is running about 50% less than it did a year ago. And the supply we're looking at is about a 2-month supply based on current sales pace out there. Starting to see some appraisal issues come in as well with that price appreciation as lenders look at loans that are going out there. So we're having to work diligently with the lenders as well as with the sellers on coming to that defendable price out there for financing options. Interest rates continue to hover at incredibly low rates. We're at about 3% today. Back in the early 2000s, we were hovering 7.5% to 8%. This favorable rate has really allowed homeowners to offset the price appreciation in their payments. At the end of the day, it's the payments that the homeowners are looking at more than the cost. If they can get in with a payment that they can afford, that works for them. So the great interest rates the last few years have really helped offset the price appreciation that we've been experiencing. From a national viewpoint, the Midwest continues to be one of the most favorable housing markets from an affordability standpoint within the nation. Midwest, as Kalen mentioned, we're positioned really well. National Association of Realtors pegged the Des Moines metro area as one of 10 markets that they really expected to perform well coming out of the pandemic in 2021, and really basing that on the resilience we showed during the pandemic, as well as unemployment rates, which continue to be favorable here in Iowa. Net domestic migration, which we've talked a little bit about as well, people coming out of larger metropolitan areas into Iowa that maybe has a little more space and room and options, a little more affordability, and just other market conditions. So feel blessed to be in central Iowa here and in the Midwest on the housing front. Kathy, your question on has the market priced some segments out of the market? Or, you know, price appreciation is certainly increasing and at a pace much greater than wage appreciation out there, which impacts affordability for prospective buyers that we know within the market. Existing home buyers are benefiting from the price appreciation, which is allowing them and positioning them well for a move-up opportunity should they choose. I think the segment that's being impacted the most due to the price appreciation is really the new entrants into the home ownership market. They're having to look deeper into savings, and fortunately savings rates over the last 10, 12 years have increased as well. But it's a bigger leap for them to get into an entry-level home today than it was in the past. And other guests have spoken on this as well. The COVID impacted industries. I think there's pockets of employees out there. While our unemployment rate is favorable at 3.5% or so right now, there are certain segments that were tied to the retail trade, leisure, and hospitality that have been hit much harder than that. So the price appreciation certainly doesn't work in their favor during these times. But all in all, I think we've got a good market here. I see opportunities continue as rates remain low. I think relative to where they were 10, 15, 20 years ago even. And I also think you'll see community coming together and a greater focus on ensuring homeownership opportunities are made available in areas that maybe have been underserved in the past. And grants and other initiatives trying to help fill that gap in the affordability there in those areas that have been hardest hit. So with that, back to you.
Thanks, Kim. And that concludes our 8 speakers today. We've got just enough time where I want to give each of the speakers an opportunity to respond very briefly. I'm going to ask you each to keep your remarks to about 30 seconds. And the question that I'm going to have you respond to is, last year was obviously a very interesting year, to say the least, and a number of new lessons I'm sure were learned. So I'm going to ask you to, in about 30 seconds or so, what's maybe one lesson, something that you're leaning on to help guide you as you continue to move forward, as we still wrestle with some of the uncertainty that is, of course, still going to be built in here for the foreseeable future anyways. So you'll have a second to think about it. We're going to go in the same order that we went for the program today. But before while you think about what you're going to say to that final question, I want to make sure that we make everybody aware of a couple things as well. First, we have a couple upcoming events. On Friday, April 30th, we have our next Fearless Friday event. That aims to empower women and the people and companies that support them. You can sign up and learn more at fearless.com/Fearless Friday. It's a great interactive program, great opportunity to network and connect with a number of folks across the community. And on May 13th, we've got our next Power Breakfast. That's going to be looking at how the community is responding to COVID-19, also taking a little bit more of a look ahead. We've got 9 speakers that are all going to share ideas on what they think the new normal should be looking like as we move forward. I know you're going to love the program. A number of great community leaders. That is now open on our website. You can sign up at businessrecord.com/events. Second, I want to say thank you to our presenting sponsor, Polk County Housing Trust Fund, and our supporting sponsors, Mid-American Energy and Henning Construction. And of course, again, congratulations to Mark Rupprecht on winning the Iowa State University Ivy College of Business CRE Pro of the Year Award. Also, a thank you to Kathy Bolton for putting together a great group of panelists and fantastic questions. We and the community are very lucky to have you writing for us and providing great resources for the community, especially over the past year as we navigated through a number of different changes. And of course, to our speakers, we're so grateful for your expertise and your forecasting abilities. Thank you for putting yourself out there today to help the business community do business a little bit better. They can't hear your applause, but we can see it in the chat. So if you'd take a second, go in the chat, give them a big thank you for being vulnerable with us today and helping us all understand what we might be looking forward to in the future. A reminder that the discussion doesn't end here today. On June 10th, we have our first Project 515 event where we're going to discuss retail. So stay tuned for that. And of course, make sure to check out the magazine in this week's Business Record or online at businessrecord.com/AREM. And of course, you can stay up to date all the time each week by subscribing to our free weekly e-newsletter at businessrecord.com/sign up. So with that, we're going to go all the way back to the very beginning of our program today. And again, the question is, what's maybe a lesson that you're going to use to help guide you as we move forward? And up first is Randy Ripperger.
Probably the lesson I learned has to deal with my own office here. Our building's been closed to the public since March 17th of last year. My office has too. So a lot of my staff had to work from home remotely. Some of them didn't. We're still closed to the public. And one thing we learned is we can function without the public coming into our office. We can do just about everything that we did in the past without the public coming into our office. Every once in a while, we still have to meet in person with the property owners. But I think going forward, we're looking at different ways on how we're going to structure our office. Probably a lot more like a hybrid model. Some people working in the office a couple of days a week and working remotely the rest of the week. So and we're going to be interested in seeing how that plays out in the market in general too.
Thank you, Randy. Next, we have Jennifer Cooper.
Okay, so the lesson with 2020, I think we all knew we have a great community and we've got great clients, and Bankers Trust is a great bank to work with, but it was just great to see how we could all come together to get to the same end goal. I mean, people pitched in between the PPP loans, which almost buried the banks, and all the modifications and adjustments we needed to make in a really quick time period. We all just came together really quickly. The city, the county, the state, all the different, parts that needed to help pull things off. All those relationships and how really tight our community is a big benefit for us. And so I think that was my big lesson from 2020. So thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Brad Deets.
From my perspective, and it's not something cities are always so great at, is just maintain flexibility, and whether that's internal processes within the city or really looking at it from a development perspective, all the way up to a zoning consideration is be flexible, work with people, and base your decisions on what's currently going on today.
Thank you, Brad. Next is Dan.
Thanks. I think maybe piggybacking a little bit on everybody, what we've learned about what our community can do to come together. We definitely experienced that, appreciate that. And I think what we need to do is actually be forward focused on that as we talk about a metro that's going to gain momentum coming out of this event. I think that we need to learn from other metros that have gone through booms recently and struggles and successes there. Even Austin, San Francisco, Portland. What happened with housing affordability as their metros gained extreme popularity. Maybe we won't hit that kind of level, but we still need to learn those lessons and focus on that and use this momentum of people coming together and as a community to focus on those things as we head into what we want the city to become as we hit a boom.
Well said, Dan. Next, we've got Paul.
Yeah, lessons learned. I think where I'm going to go on this is the young professionals, and I do have a son that lives in Denver, starting his career, and another son in Des Moines, same thing. Both young professionals, and remote working. It was really tough on them. I think they really missed out and lost out on a lot of mentoring and coaching. And I think we just all need to be mindful as we re-enter the workforce that it affects everyone differently, but the young professionals are our future. So that was my lesson learned.
Thanks, Paul. Tyler Dingel.
You didn't prep us on this question, so we're going to have to talk about that afterwards. But I would say what I learned is the only certainty in real estate is uncertainty. And of course, taxes, thanks to Paul or to Randy. But the market's always changing out there. So you've got to really stay engaged with your clients and stay engaged with the market, even when it feels like there's not a lot going on. Reaching out and talking with folks and understanding what's happening with other markets, with other professionals, it really sets you in a good position to help guide your clients when that opportunity does arise to make a change or make a shift of what they're doing currently.
And that's why we keep things loose around here too, so we can keep things unexpected, so keep you on your toes.
There you go.
All right, Kalen Ludwig.
Yeah, so lesson learned. I mean, I think in general, life's just about adapting. It's not an always easy thing for us to do as humans, but going through a pandemic, I mean, we weren't ready for it. We couldn't imagine it. We thought it'd be over in a couple of weeks, right? But we endured it, and we're getting to the other side of the tunnel. And I'm just really proud of Central Iowa for pulling together and adapting. Just looking around at so many great businesses and how they were able to pivot, get creative. I mean, it's very inspiring to, see that, and for us to support those small businesses that needed the support. It's rewarding. So.
All right, thank you. And our last comment of the day, Kim Bakey.
Thank you. First of all, I think we need to reflect on how Iowa handled the pandemic in general. And from my perspective, very grateful to the governor for deeming real estate essential business. That did not happen in every state, and that really allowed our real estate environment to continue to thrive very quickly as we got past the initial shock of the pandemic. But overall, I think change, flexibility, and going back to one of my favorite sayings is we just can't wait for the storm to pass. We've got to learn to dance in the rain. We did a lot of that, trying to be flexible and nimble and meeting clients where they were.
Thank you, Kim. We appreciate it. And thank you again to all of our panelists and, of course, to our audience for attending today. Again, my name is Chris Konetsky. I'm the publisher and executive editor of the Business Record. We know that you've got a lot of places you can spend your time, and to spend it today learning and trying to grow in order to help make this community even stronger is something we don't look past. So again, if I can ever be of any help, if our staff can ever be of any help, please don't hesitate to reach out our way. We're looking forward to continuing the discussion throughout the course of the year at Project 515, and we're excited to keep that going. That's it for our program today, and want to say one last time thank you to our sponsors, our panelists, and of course Kathy for putting together today's program. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Only one that speaks to him, and I am the friendliest of friends of God.